I'm so grateful to be able to introduce our speaker today. I've told a lot of people about Ra to like tune into Ra, check out what Ra's up to. And the reason is because you have this energy, man, that you're a true leader in treating your body like a temple. And I admire the way you do it and your humbleness. You're not cocky, you're so wise. And you just have this presence. It's truly amazing. And anybody who isn't following Ra, make sure you follow Ra, because I want to be more like Ra. So his official bio that we have is Ra Earth is a teacher of humanology, all things fitness, movement, yoga, and ancient practices to optimize human technology for full spectrum living. Ra's function in life is and always has been to bring teachings, awareness, expansion, and permission to people on these subject matters. So thank you so much for joining us, brother. You could just start out, man, by taking it wherever you want, but your journey would be cool.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Leah, for that meditation. I'll start with, my journey of how I got here. And I guess we'll start when I was a kid. I started noticing that there's some reality isn't as solid as we're taught. And it was just, being a kid, I didn't really have a large awareness of it. I wasn't seeing spirits or anything. But for me, it really came to every time I did something bad would happen to me. That was like my primary indication of like, I know how to ride a bike, but how come if I'm going to knock over a garbage can, I fall on my face? Like I started noticing that, when I had intentions of negativity, it would immediately come onto me. And so anyways, long story short, I went to school for psychology, and because I wanted to know more about the human existence, because it felt like there was more for me. I got picked on a lot in school, and it just felt like, why are people picking on me? And so I wanted to figure out a little bit more about the human being. And halfway through that, I switched over to exercise science because I realized that there's not really careers available in psychology. And I was also interested in fitness because I played hockey since I was 3 years old. So I was basically learning about the human experience and then playing hockey every single day. And I was a fighter, and the person whose responsibility it was to hurt the other team. And so I was kind of living on opposite polarities, right? I was becoming interested in the human conditioning and starting to realize that we're all connected. But then I had a job to do on the ice where it was my intention to hurt and harm other people. And going through psychology in school didn't really teach me anything, except for school, at least for psychology, wasn't up to the level that I anticipated to be the goal of getting a degree in psychology. So I ended up buying my own books and not buying the textbooks. And so that's like started my library over there, just buying books on what it is to be human. And I eventually got into meditation around 20 years ago and getting into the deeper levels and accessing, like basically popping up in people's dreams. And I started playing with manipulating realities, for what I thought was manipulating reality, and just kind of building a construct of how this whole physical reality works. And so because I went to school for exercise science, I eventually moved to California to chase a career owning gyms. And I already knew about manifestation then. And so I manifested my dream gym, almost exactly what I intended on moving to California. And I had a career owning several gyms in downtown Los Angeles for 10 years. During that time, I kept on learning about the human condition. I had to explain to myself how I was able to win fitness competitions without working out, without training. I had a lot of injuries in hockey, and I was in a very competitive sport of CrossFit. And I was able to go an entire year without working out and then show up at a CrossFit competition and win it. And for me, I had gyms where I taught people how to exercise to be powerful, but I was able to be more powerful than people that were working out all day, every day, somehow. And so I had to go even deeper into study and research to find out, how is it possible for someone that doesn't work out to be stronger and more powerful than people that do work out? And what I uncovered was that working out, diet, and exercise is like one way of getting power, and that there's the universe itself has a flow of energy that's coming through it, in many different levels, and we can access that power in many different ways. I mean, we just did some breath, right? Ultimately, if we're eating food and diet, that's just a combination of earth, air, sunlight, and water, and consciousness. And we can connect with the earth, we can connect with light, we can connect with water, and we can connect with air, pure at the source. And so there's ways to get power and energy that I was able to transmute into winning competitions, winning fitness competitions, showing up somewhere and walking out with tens of thousands of dollars in prize money because I was doing something else. And so I didn't know what that was in the beginning, but then I realized that I go to the beach every day and sit in the sun in Santa Monica and I'm earthed in the ground. And so I discovered a whole bunch of things that made me not want to own a gym anymore. So I shut down my gyms, and that was about 4 years ago. And since then, I've realized that it wasn't necessarily making me powerful physically. It was just, that was my intention. My intention was to be on the podium. And I've realized that no matter what, my intention is what comes to be. And this is possible for everyone, not just me. I used to think I was special doing these things, but I realize that even when I owned the gym, no matter what diet I told people to do, and I told people to do all sorts of different diets, they got the change that they desired when they're committed to it. And now I'm in network marketing. So I work with a bunch of people in teams and leadership development, and taking people through manifesting their dream lives and attaining money through that business model. And I realize that there's things that can help us attain realities of our intentions, but it's more of just getting out of our own way. And that seems like woo-woo talk, but I've proved it in a physical realm. I've proved it in a business realm personally, and I'm witnessing people prove it in business realm and financially, every single day. This is the work that I do. And so it's really as simple as being who you are, and reality will shapeshift around you. And so I guess I'll start there. I do have practical exercises and experiences that I can share, but I guess I'll leave it up to this group to see which direction I go.
Please do. We'd love to hear those.
Okay. All right. So the thing with health is that you don't really get healthy tomorrow if you decide to get healthy today, right? And so to expect that you're going to, and I'm going to translate this over to wealth, because it seemed I message everyone that follows me on Instagram. And so I have conversations with a lot of people, and I know what people are struggling with. And the thing that a lot of people are struggling with is making money. And so I'm going to start there. Just very easy practice. So I'm going to start with health though, because it's something we can wrap our head around. In order to be a person that's healthy, you will have to be healthy, right? You have to be healthy consistently in your mind, in your feelings, in your action, over and over and over and over again for probably 2 to 10 years, depending on how long you weren't healthy, right? And so on day one of that 10-year journey, you have no representation of health, right? You weigh the same as you did the day before. Your skin is as bad as it was the day before. Your hair is falling out. Your feet are swollen when you wake up. There's still all of if you're coming from a non-healthy standpoint. But in order for this 10-year process to work, the things that you do on day one need to be basically similar, if not the exact same as year 1 or year 8. You're eating correctly. You're thinking positive about your food. You're not going to fast food restaurants. You're walking, you're taking the stairs. You might be exercising. You might be doing yoga. You're having a positive relationship with your body, and being healthy results in health. Okay. It's the same thing with wealth. It's the same exact thing with wealth. And the easiest way that I've learned to start people on this process is that people need to realize their wealth first and foremost. And the easiest way to do this is to take out a sheet of paper and write down 10 reasons why you're wealthy. If you don't have an identity of wealth, you will never be wealthy. It's very unlikely that you're going to receive more money than you think that you're worth. So identifying with wealth with 10 things on a sheet of paper will give you the practice of realizing that I have an iPhone and that I can do this and a pair of shoes will show up tomorrow morning. That's rich. Like that's rich AF. Like that's some magic stuff. And if that's on the list, then great. But what are 9 other things? What are 9 other reasons why you're wealthy? It doesn't matter how much money's in your bank account. If you have legs to somebody who's in a wheelchair, you're rich. Like you're richer than anything that they can attain in their life. Even if they attain billions of dollars, you're richer than them. And so when we practice identifying why we're wealthy, what that does is it gives us an enthusiasm every time I pick up my phone and I remind myself, oh yeah, I'm wealthy. And this excitement of wealth, this enthusiasm of wealth with these 10 things is going to eventually become an unconscious practice. And you're going to unconsciously realize that when you get into your car, which before this exercise was just your car, but then you remembered that 2 years ago, it was your dream car that you purchased. And now every time you get in a car, it's your dream car. And when these 10 things become unconscious, you just add more things to the list. And then eventually, and this all just sounds too simple to work, but I'm going to get to why it works in a second. But eventually, everything in your life is going to be a symbolism of wealth. And you will feel that because you've practiced it. Just like the person who started exercising, those first few sit-ups weren't easy to do. You can't even actually feel the muscles you're using when you start in a gym. If a trainer says squat down and up, most clients can't tell you which muscles they're using to do it. It's like there's a disconnection. So having a disconnection of feeling wealthy is also the same thing. It's normal. So you have to connect with feeling wealthy. And this enthusiasm, how you show up in your life, that's what's going to attract the type of people that only work and operate and associate with these type of people. Okay, there's little indicators that the wealthy people recognize, and they won't even get past sentence number 1 if you use certain words. If you complain, for instance, a wealthy person doesn't complain. A God doesn't complain. So how, if you're going out there acting like you're poor internally and expressing it unknowingly, the people that are wealthy, the people that could take you to the next level, the mentors that are looking to somebody who's right there that they could take to the top, the people that you would meet that would change your life, if you're not ready for them, they know. Like they know. It doesn't just accidentally happen that people get a break. So this is a very, very simple drill that's very easy to write off as like, nah, I'm not going to talk about how my pen is making me wealthy and how my pair of sneakers I've had that are 2 years old is wealthy for me. Like it's the mindset thing that's going to align you with the people necessary for your enhancement. And that's a real thing. There's like, successful people are usually only going to interact with successful people. And you guys know this if you've been part of any club. If you've been a figure skater at a high level, you're not going to be associating with the people that are skating on the pond, on the frozen ice. Okay. You're going to be around the people that are going to advance you. And you want to position yourself around people that see you as valuable to them. And you see you as valuable to them when you start seeing yourself as valuable, when you start seeing yourself as wealthy. So it's really flipping the script there. And I know that that's said in a million different ways by a million different financial gurus, but there's a reason for that because it really does work. So I just want to start with that practice, and that can be applied to anything. Money is really valueless if you guys think about it. Money is a piece of paper, and it's always been valueless. Before paper, there were metal coins, and money's really just always been a symbol. The metal coins represented like what was powerful back then. If you had metal, you could, like the swords and the shields, and the money is a representation of like contracts. I mean, our dollar really is like an IOU. It is a contract, but in the essence, metal, paper, even before that, they were just like making marks on sticks that were IOUs. These are valueless things. And when you realize that the money is valueless, then you stop putting the fact that money is above you, right? And if you wrote down $100 million on a piece of paper and you realize that you are worth $100 million, you're probably worth more than that, because 100 million actual dollars is worth the paper that it's printed on, and paper is everywhere. I've got a notebook right here that could print $100 million worth of cash. So we have to minimize, basically it's not minimizing money, it's maximizing ourselves. And money is a manifestation. You guys can all manifest. You guys are all currently manifesting everything in your life. And I'd like everybody to practice manifesting things. If you've never tried it, that's like, practice it. And I want you guys all to be careful when you practice it, because it's a very powerful thing. I had a friend who used to play the manifestation game with his now wife, and they would just call out like red parrot. And then within 24 to 48 hours, one of them would see a red parrot, hear a red parrot, see it on TV, see a painting, see a newspaper article with a red parrot. Somebody would mention it in a conversation, and they would just pick random things and they would constantly manifest. And that's how we can start. So that you guys believe, if you guys can manifest, what's something random? Blue hammer, right? Collectively, if we can intend on manifesting a blue hammer, one of us is going to be able to create that. But when you can start doing that, they eventually just decided to say $500,000. Now, this story is just one of caution, because later that day, she got hit by a car crossing the street, walking her dog, and in this game of life. And it's my intention to help everybody realize their abilities to manifest their dreams, so that people quit manifesting nightmares, because that's what the whole point of the news and all of this stuff is, that the people in power know that the power lies with the people, not with the 1% of 1%, right? That's what, if there's a king sitting in a room of 100 people, the king's on the throne with the shiny stuff, because it's just the illusion that that person's powerful. But the king's the one that knows that the people are powerful. So he directs the people on what to think and what to feel and how to be distracted from what they really want, so that he basically utilizes all of their energy. So my intention is for everybody to realize their own kingliness, their own wealthiness, and whether it's money or anything else, but so that we can all start creating our own dreams, and then we're living in everybody's dream world.
That was amazing. Thank you for that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I wanted to follow up with another practice that I know you embody. You were talking about how when you were winning all these different contests without actually training, you said you knew how you were doing it because you were rooted in the earth. You were connected to the sun. And I know you practice your connection to the sun and rooting in the earth. Could you tell us a little bit more about your actual practices and what they mean to you, how you do that?
Yeah. Good question. Thank you for bringing me back there. So I mentioned getting out of our way, right? And so if we look at the sun, one of the ways that we get in the way of the power of the sun is that we separate ourselves from it. We separate ourselves from it, number one, by thinking that we're a human being and the sun is something else. Like we're the same thing as the sun. Okay. Like the sun birthed the earth. Everything, whether you believe in a gravitational universe model or an electric universe model, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, realize that there's many different creationisms, another way. There's different ways that people theorize that the universe came to be. But in any of those ways, what makes up the sun makes up us, right? So then we really have to look into what light is. The notion that the sun is a burning ball of gas, that comes from the gravitational theory of the universe, which I feel is an outdated theory. It's a very destructive theory, the Big Bang, everything's exploding and destroying and getting more and more into chaos. This is a convenient theory for those in power to have everybody think is true. So if we go back to us being separated, like that would mean that it's kind of like a valueless burning ball of fire in the sky, and then we're just kind of down here and we use that thing for warmth and light. But if we can restructure the way that we look at the sun and realize that it's probably more like a node, like an electric node in the middle of a galaxy that's communicating through what we perceive as light with the rest of the galaxy. And the galaxy itself is probably more of a living thing than we even know what that word life means. And that the sun is a node and it's transferring information through light. Then what we would want to make sure to do is to get ourself in as much of the light as possible, because this is essentially the source of power for our entire physical reality. It's the source of power for our entire earth. Literally, it's how everything living that we know of, even the things that don't necessarily use light, the heat or the gas at the bottom of the ocean, that all started as light. So anything living uses light. And so one of the things that I do, and I'm looking around, most of you guys have dark hair. There's different types of melanin. So if we start looking at our technology of our human body, how would we absorb this light? Because I'm like, we should be in the light. Well, what does that mean? We want to look at how we absorb light. And melanin, we're taught, is, the more melanin we have, the less that we burn, right? And that's true, but it doesn't mean that melanin is there to block light. Melanin is a receptor of light. Okay, the more melanin in your skin means that there's more sun hitting your skin. So your body produced melanin and now it can receive light. There's melanin in our skin, our eyes, and our hair. And there's different types of melanin. If you have blonde hair, blue eyes, then it's not as capable to absorb light. Actually, the highly melanated people on this planet are very, very powerful people in different ways than our society operates. If you look at Latin cultures, African cultures, they operate completely differently, but they've got probably more style. Africans are stronger than us. They've got bigger bones than us, more dense bones. They can make up languages like on the spot. They just make up words and everybody in the group knows exactly what they're talking about. There's some advantages to highly melanated individuals because they absorb more light. When they come to America and they get put in houses, they get sick. They get, all hypertension. These things don't exist in Africa. So melanin is a source to bring in light to the human body. And it's in our eyes, it's in our hair, and it's in our skin. And then if we look at our eyes, our hair, our skin, we realize that this is really our nervous system. This is our brain. When we are a sperm enters an egg, and then that duplicates and then duplicates and duplicates. And then eventually there's a bunch of cells. these cells need to start turning into the different parts of ourself. So then they separate into 3 different layers of cells. And one of the layers is going to be the bones and muscle. So one group of cells is going to be all the bones and muscle in your body. Then there's another group that's going to be all of your organs in your body. And then there's a third layer that's going to be your nervous system and your brain. And this is the 3 layers. You guys have heard of ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. All right. The ectoderm is the brain layer. What happens with these 3 cells, because this is a flat layer, it needs to turn itself into a ball. Okay. So the layers, and I wish I had like 3 different things, but let's just say that this is the bones and muscle. This is the organ layer, and this is the ecto, the brain layer. As the bones wrap around the organs and the brain, it forms a circle like this. And because the brain is popping up the top, the brain wraps around everything. So now you see the brain wraps around the bones and the muscle. And then all of these cells end up being us, with the brain in the very middle and the nervous system, then the organs, then the muscles and the bone, and then our skin. So our skin is literally made from the same cells that our brain and nerves are made of. Why is that important? Because in our nervous system is melanin, and that melanin transfers light from our skin, our eyes, and our hair through our nervous system into our brain. Our eyes also take melanin into our hypothalamus, into our pituitary, and then into our pineal gland. So we are beings that are made to receive light, and we do that through melanin. So to start with, go outside. Go outside and be in the light. Ideally, we are able to match our current environment with the environment that we're suited for. If you're African and you're living in Michigan, you probably want to be outside every single day. If you're from a northern climate with blonde hair and you're living in Africa, you probably just want to go outside when the sun is low in the horizon and don't burn. So we do have to translate and not just go outside all the time. That's not what I'm saying. Don't overcharge yourself, because that's what a burn is. But we do bring in power through these solar cells, which is our body. And we do want a healthy amount of melanin produced to help us do that. Hair is, if you look into many traditions, you got the Sikhs, you have the Native Americans. This is a technology, and the technology is bringing in light. And so if you notice that the Hindus, the Native Americans, they put a knot for males on top of their head. There's a solar center here, speaking from a yogic perspective. And so males, in the anatomical male, the solar center is where we bring in light. And so we want that coil right above the solar center. Females, there's 2 of them. There's one right in the back of your head and one in the corner of your head. There's reasons for our traditions. There's reasons why females put their hair back here and males coil it up here. And then they both take it down at night. And it comes from the whole purpose of hair, which is to bring in light into the body. So that's one thing that I discovered, is what light is. And there's scientists out there that spend their entire life looking at these different codes that are traveling through the universe and theorizing what consciousness is. And on a simple level, what I can translate from that is that light is acting as a map of how physical entities express themselves on this dimension, on this plane, on Earth. And so just like our Earth is going around the sun and experiencing seasons, and the sun is even experiencing fluctuations, the sun is actually also going around the galaxy, and there's seasons within the galaxy. And so we want to make sure that this node is that we're tuned to this sun as it's recalibrating itself. Because when we look at consciousness over tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, if we look at the calendars of ancient cultures, we see that there's different ages that are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years long. And you ask yourself, why are these calendars so freaking long? We only keep track of 1 year, one revolution of the sun or the earth going around the sun. It's because they weren't just tracking that. They were tracking the precession of the equinoxes. There's a lot of other stuff happening. The Earth's tilt. There's a lot of other stuff happening in our solar system that is important to note. And some of those things have to do with the expression of consciousness, how people on the planet are actually interacting with each other. And one of these calendars that you guys have heard of, the Aquarian age, right? And then we just came out of the Piscean age to the Piscean is, Jesus is the fish, and we're going into the Aquarian age. And this is all supposed to be happening now. There's the transfer now. And so how does this express themselves? If you walk into a yoga class, people are talking about the Aquarian age. You go to some shaman drum circle, they're talking about how everyone's supposed to be collaborating now, and we're just going to be a new system. And how? That's what I was interested in. Like, what does that mean? Like, what how can they just say that? And what I've gathered, and I'm still figuring this out, is that the light changes frequency. The light changes, and I don't even know if frequency is the word to use here, but it shifts and changes in cycles. And there's calendars that chart these cycles. And right now we're going into a different cycle that's going to lead to cooperation, collaboration. And if we even just look at our physical environment, we have the internet, right? This is a version of what we're talking about. I'm going on complete tangents after tangents after tangents. There's a book series called The Law of One that I read many years ago, like 10 years ago. So I don't really I don't remember it all, but it's channels from Ra, capital R, capital A, which is distinguished from me, which is lowercase a, but Ra is Ra, the sun god from Egypt, who came down as a blue avian. And he described different densities, different levels of consciousness that beings go through. He described density number 1 being the elements, the earth, the air, the water, and these elements are living. And as they gain awareness through a vehicle like a plant or an animal, as they combine themselves into a plant or an animal through a shift in light that mapped that to be, whether you look at this thing that I just said as a god or a sun that's going around a galaxy that changes frequency, it's the same thing. It changes the map of how these things arrange themselves. And now we have an awareness. The plant or the animal becomes aware. And eventually it has to eat things and hunt and mate. And it's just aware. It's just going through these processes. And eventually that animal becomes self-aware. It realizes itself. If you think about like a higher level chimpanzee, it's protecting a harem of females because it realizes that I need, right? It's aware of itself. I need these females to produce my offspring, and I want my offspring to be proliferated. And so I need to fight other males. So they start to realize themselves. And that is the necessary knowledge to become us. We're self-aware, and a lower level human only cares about self-awareness because they're coming out of this stage. So it's just me, 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 me. Hunt, like everything I just described with the ape, right? We know these type of people. It's just me, 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 me. And that's good. That's the start of the cycle. But then there's a cycle above where we are, where it's fourth density. And this is a density where we can all feel each other. And this feeling of each other is what we're recognizing people to start being born with. People are starting to be empathic. People are starting to sense other people. And eventually, if we look at like Atlanteans and Lumerians, these advanced civilizations, this is the level they were at. So you don't have to talk to me about an emotion that you're feeling. I can just feel it. And in this density, we start to feel the entire population of the planet's feelings. And if you imagine what that would feel like, we would want everybody to feel healthy, happy, worthy. And so we're going into a stage where we're starting to recognize that. We're starting to feel each other, even just being able to see people on the internet on a different side of the world is giving us feelings, right? So we've developed a technology that is described in this book that was written 50 years ago by a sixth density being. He's talking down to us. About what's happening right now. We're starting to feel each other. Tomorrow, if we all just woke up and we could feel everybody within a 2-mile radius, there would be no more poor people. No one would struggle. Like everyone would go around feeding each other and making sure everybody was handled because we wouldn't want to feel bad. We want everyone to feel good. And so for me, I feel that is the solution, is to increase the ability for us to feel others. And social media is doing that. We can see what other people are doing. That feeling is transmitted. I can't wait till we start. And I don't wear these devices, but many people wear the heart rate monitors and the like, where it's tracking how you feel. It's tracking if you're relaxed, if you're anxious, that being tied to your social media account so everybody else can see that. And then we can start analyzing the data and see the things that make people happy, see the things that make people graduate from a depressed person to a happy person. And we can start like taking that data and bringing it into reality. That's going to start solving things that the elite can't keep up with. They're not going to be able to keep up with a whole society of billions of people that can feel each other. There's just no law, no mandate, no nothing is going to be able to brainwash people around the fact of their heart. And I know I'm talking.
No, man, that's actually incredible. And first off, that's one of the reasons we started this fellowship. We start each meeting with the heart coherence exercise to try to raise our individual and collective vibrations, which raises our collective emotional baseline. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Global Coherence Initiative, but basically that's people from all over the world are plugging in to track their heart coherence and where they're basically what they're feeling. So it's a way that you can practice moving yourself from a certain emotional baseline to a higher emotional baseline through meditation repetitively. So it's basically a way people go on and just show what their coherence scores are. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, because the more psychophysiological coherence we have in ourselves, the more powerful we are, the more we can actually change the electromagnetic environment around us. That's another exercise in shape-shifting reality, is to make sure that the head, the heart, and the gut are in line. But like you're saying, a group of people being in coherence is how we really get massive change done. I'm not familiar with that, but it definitely resonates. Do you guys?
And then inner balance is a specific device that you can use that will train you in increasing your coherence, which is basically trying to train you into feeling emotions that are healthier for you. and higher frequency.
Yes. And then you can get clarity on your intentions. And not everyone wants to be a millionaire. Not everyone wants a Ferrari. Some people just want to sit under a waterfall. And there's plenty of creation that we could all do. I'm gonna take 2 minutes just in case somebody's curious of what's next in this ascension, because this is ascension. This is what Ra describes, is the process of ascension. So we ascend when we can start feeling each other. The next stage after that, the 5th level. So the 4th level is the heart. It's this chakra. The 5th level. So once the entire planet feels each other, that's where we're going. That's the next level of the human being. Everyone thinks like we're going to grow another arm, or like, no, we just actually feel each other. Like that's the next level of our evolution. And then after that, we link up our minds. Okay. And that makes sense, right? So first the heart links up, because the heart is an aura that expands around us. It would make sense that it just starts communicating with each other. And then that's a system-wide feeling. And then the next level, the 5th level, is system-wide thinking. So when a scientist learns something on the other side of the world, you instantaneously learn it. So you can start seeing that it was important to have the 2nd and 3rd level where it's individuals, so that we get individual sovereignty, so that we know how to be that scientist who works as an individual to discover something, so that the 7 or 20 billion by this time people that are around get that information. So we had to go through this ascension so that we become an individual, and then understand that we all have different aspects that we're all learning from. Whether you're a scientist or somebody sitting under a waterfall, you're learning stuff that the group gets. And the next level after that, bodies become meaningless. There isn't really a need for even time, because you have every experience, and you have all feeling states of all these billions of people. You've become enlightened. You're the 6th, the 7th level, you start to dissolve into a group being similar to light, like our sun, that is in a bodiless state. And that is Ra. Ra is in a bodiless state, and he condensed himself into a physical blue avian to then talk to us. And that's where we get these ascended masters as well. People like Jesus, they come down into our state and they materialize themselves so that we can interact with them. And so another thing, that this is the reason why I wanted to just say this. Another thing is that when we're talking to people, we can be feeling from a 4th dimensional density state, and we can be interacting people with a 5th density state by just accepting other people's perception and not arguing with everybody, and just take it in as another lens to which to look through life. I think that our 3rd density brain is trying to it's rejecting everybody else's perspective. But all these perspectives that we're getting that seems really overloaded is really where we're headed. We're going to eventually be able to digest all of these opposing viewpoints and make sense of it all. And so I think that we can all practice taking in other perspectives and just being cool with it, even if it's different than yours. And we all get to do that, because there's global stuff happening right now that we all fall on one side of the fence of our preference. And there's basically half the entire world that's the other side of the fence. And we see it on social media. We see it when we walk into a place with strangers, and practicing having a higher level, a higher ascended version of ourselves is to practice accepting other perspectives. And so that's kind of like the stuff that I'm busy with every single day.
This has been so wonderful. You are just your wisdom is amazing, and you're inspiring, and we really appreciate you coming to talk to us. thank you so much for all you're doing for people, for the planet. Really appreciate it. We have time for a question or two, if that's all right with you.
Mhm.
Okay. I see Rochelle has her hand up. If you want to go ahead and.
Hi. Mine is
Hi.
super quick because you might already have like a YouTube video about this, but you mentioned the list of 10 items. Do you have like a YouTube video that goes into more depth, or is that like you kind of said it was a sort of a technique? If you have a
Yeah,
YouTube video, I can just go watch that. But if
I
not,
don't. It's just what I respond to the most people I talk to in direct messages that have an issue with I'm poor. I don't know what to do financially. I love my life, except I don't have money. Like it's the thing that I reply to everyone is tell me 10 reasons why you're wealthy. And the thing is, 8 out of 10 of them don't understand the exercise. 9 out of 10 of them don't understand the exercise. It's like impossible for them to view themselves as wealthy. And so if that's even just making the list is a powerful exercise that can shift you.
but it could be
And
applied to other areas too, right?
okay, yes.
Yeah.
So then we get into reality hopping and shape shifting reality. But if you're looking at wealth, that's one way. But if you want to become somebody who's knowledgeable at dance, for instance, you would then have to go rewrite the story in
Right.
your mind of how in your entire life you've been brought up with the skills to know about dance, and then you would have to transmute that into your life now, and then start getting rid of the things that don't support that. And then
Right.
eventually somebody's going to show up in your life that's like, hey, I'm getting certified as a dance instructor and I need a practice student to train with me 3 hours a day for the next 10 months. What do you think about that? That's how these things happen. You just align yourself to being that person. What would this person be? And then it expands your awareness of what's possible. And this is what I do every single moment of the day. You realize eventually that every single moment of every single day is a manifestation by you.
Yeah. I'm kind of laughing because yesterday I was kind of sad because some of my friends that I used to go dancing with can't go right now. And so I was like, gosh, I wish I had someone else. And literally this morning, one of my neighbors stopped me and asked if I wanted to go dancing. And I'm just like, and then you bring up dance. So it is just absolutely, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, but
It's
I was just
crazy,
curious about your
right?
Yeah, it's,
I don't dance at all, but for
oh,
some
and
reason
I
I
love
said
it.
that.
Like
I said that.
I cannot, yeah, I love dance. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yes.
Michelle. That was nice. Did anybody else have a question or want to?
I have a question again. Me, can you hear me?
Yep. Kind of. Not really.
Butthole sunning. I was curious about that. Butthole sunning? I'll type it in the chat.
Oh,
I heard
I
that.
heard it. Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, so
curious about it.
that got sensationalized and I just reposted it. I made a video 2 years ago and it was basically on a 2-year anniversary that I just reposted it again a couple weeks ago. Basically went around the world. Other people profited off it a lot more than I did. Because they were willing to take interview. I took some interviews, but they just made it, they were just more extravagant about it than I was. For me, it was a serious post. And it just comes down to what I was talking about. Get as much of your solar cells in the sun as possible. And being naked in the sunlight is how you do that. If you're not naked ever, if the sun doesn't shine places on your body, then you're missing out. I feel that our hair is indicating important spots on our body where sun should be going, because I just laid out what the function of hair is. It's the brain. And so if we think about even sexual organs And what's going on down there, there's a reason for hair down there. And it's to take in sunlight. And then it's also to transmit data to the person you're mating with, to your lover, because the way when we have sex, that energy exchange is going from root to root level to root level. And the more that we get to know somebody and the more alignment that we get to them, that starts to arc up and we start to be in line with survival together, right? Our second chakra, we start to care for each other so the other person doesn't die. We start to actually have feelings for them and want them to be safe. And then we go up and we're at heart connection, right? And eventually we're having sex through the root, and there's this arc of energy going pineal gland to pineal gland, crown chakra to crown chakra. And that's where people access the universe through orgasm together with a partner or alone. And you can start then using Egyptian sex magic, and you can start basically using magical sex practices, but it's that energy flow and it goes through like hair. And back to butthole sunning, the perineum is also an important gate in Taoism. And so it wasn't necessarily like butthole in the sun, but it's just the whole fact of get outside naked, have your sun shining everywhere on your body. And that was just a way to get people's attention. Hey, look over here. There's an important message. And that's what it was for me. I don't necessarily think that sunlight on your anus is the most important spot for it to be. Even in the video, I said 30 seconds, and 30 seconds is a very small amount of time, which then represents what I feel about it. That's not the important thing. It's getting on your cheeks, on even your front side is more important than anus. There's melanin is what we're looking for. Where's the melanin at? And darker melanated, highly melanated individuals have a lot of melanin in those areas.
Thank you for clarifying, because there were so many people when we posted. We have a big Facebook group and they'll all watch this after, but so many people wanted to know about that because they weren't sure really what the benefits were. So you just answered that so perfectly. So thank you.
Awesome.
Rock, I'd love to ask a question. What kind of things for those of us in like the darker northern climates? Because we had a guest on here, a speaker a while ago, Jesse Boudreau, and he talked a lot about sun gazing, and some of us have been doing it and the practices. And I've also listened to the Andrew Huberman podcast, and then because I'd like, and he talks a lot about, light and the importance, and you're talking as well. But those of us that are in these northern climates, and I mean, in the winter, like, the sun, sometimes you don't see it for literally a week. I mean, it's like a week of darkness. It's really intense. It's challenging. I have a full spectrum light I've used, for like 10 years, but are there other, other things, like what would you suggest for someone when you are in that time of absence of light and there's no sun and you can't get it, it's not in your skin, like what can we do to kind of supplement, maybe, vitamin D, of course, but like, I don't know, is there any advice you would give to people? Not sort of.
So, and I spent all of the pandemic in Mount Shasta, which is a wintry climate. And what you can do, and a lot of this just has to do with intention, right? You want to intend to be receiving light. And it's really hard to do that inside, because when you look around inside, yes, the drywall and the paint did come from a light source, but I think it's been so beaten down and processed that it's probably not emitting that much power. But going into nature and absorbing what the trees have for you and absorbing what the air has for you. Usually in the wintertime, the air is super clean. That's what I did in Mount Shasta. It was like a chore that I had to go into the forest and connect, like really and when you're sun gazing, it's not just simply looking at the sun. There's many different ways to do it, but you definitely want to be receiving it, like not penetratively looking at it, but open up your eyes and there's even like, if you guys look at a skull, it's very porous right here, like where the third eye is, it's super porous. And there's hair in between our eyebrows that people just pluck out. That's all bringing light into there. But you could do the same thing. You want to turn yourself into a vacuum. So actually intend on vacuuming in light. And so you do need to go out feeling like you're sucking in life force. There needs to be that vacuum created with you. And then you can go, instead of just looking at the trees like, hey, that's a tree, there's like a I need something from you feeling, and then it'll provide. And you can feel it. Like, absolutely, you can feel it. Trees are super smart too. I've lost stuff in the forest and like went to a tree that I've communicated with before and was like, yo, what did I lose? It was my partner's service dog's service tag. And like, this is an important thing. It fell off of him in the forest. And I basically, within 10 seconds of connecting with the tree, I think it was 15 seconds later, I found it. So there's a lot you can do with trees. And a lot of it has to do with, the trees are said to be the libraries. Like, it's collecting data. They last a really long time. So you can definitely bring in information.
That's a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. That will help a lot. Thank you. That's great. Probably have time for one more if anybody else, excuse me, anybody else wanted to have a question or comment? Anything? Lisa? Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for everything so far. I was wondering, just from some of the stuff's new information to me, or at least the majority of it, we were talking about going different dimensions. Do we come to the planet when you're infant at the higher dimension and then go backwards? Because that's almost what it kind of sounds like from what you described.
Yeah, there's so the thank you for the question. I want to answer it by kind of not answering it, by saying that there's many different sciences and philosophies and perspectives on that question that you just asked. And so I want to say that they're all true. So what I'm about to say is one perspective. I know that there's many other perspectives, and as you start to learn more, you're going to start seeing many other perspectives. And I want to encourage and invite you to not think about which one of these people are right, but take them all in, and eventually you'll get to the place where you see the thread that connects them all, even though they're told in massively different ways and seemingly contradicting each other. Eventually, even just a simple topic like where's the soul of a baby and is the baby more connected will make you'll be more powerful when you can connect the threads of contradicting ideas. The thing is that I've heard, forget from who, some other entity, that the process of birth is a lot more traumatizing than the process of death. And so this whole cycle of life is a cycle, meaning that you die and then there's a transition into the next cycle. And so as we transition through this, it's similar to how we access memories of us as a child. We think about you when you were 8 years old, that person you don't really need anymore, but there is information that you can access. And in these higher states, like let's call it the soul or the oversoul, it has the information from the lifetimes, and time doesn't really exist in this stage. So this is where it gets a little bit confusing. But let's just put it in a chronological time frame. If the next life comes, as that thing comes into, as that soul or spirit or version of light comes into being as a child, it's going to have more connection. And then around 3, 4, 5 years old, we get rooted more into our physical bodies, where the me become, and then we start that cycle of the human being that I was talking about. It's representative in an entire life. The terrible twos is the lower level human who's just discovering itself, and it's like, oh, I have a hand, I'm gonna use it to throw things off the counter. But before that, as you go through, as you're an old person, you're more wise. You have the experiences of all the people that you ever met in your life. You feel everyone that you ever met in your life, and you're operating as a higher density being. But then you die, and then you recycle. And so it's just the baby is starting the new cycle, and it was just connected to something greater. I know that this is kind of weird answer,
No,
but
that makes sense. Thank you.
everyone can answer that in a different way. I think it's a very common noticing. Even like parents will notice that their children are kind of like have psychic abilities when they're really young. And we want to encourage those psychic abilities as opposed to telling them no, because then they'll stay connected to those neurological muscles and be able to access them. And as the sun is changing frequency, there's going to be way more empathic, super psychic babies that are born onto this planet. So we want to realize that our children are going to basically be more powerful and know more than we do. And so we are going to become a little bit incompetent when it comes to parenting the way that our parents parented us, because our parents knew everything that we were experiencing. It's not so much the case. Maybe not so much with our parents, but it's going to be even less of the case with the next, for every generation soon after today. Is like the kids are going to be so far advanced with different technology, and the physical world is also not the same. Like what we grew up in, they are not growing up in the same world. So they're our teachers to a degree.
Ra, again, thank you so much. And before we close, I just wanted to let you know if there's anything we can do as a collective to support you in your work. Please let us know, and we'd be happy to. We're happy to have you as part of the community. And anytime you'd like to, come back and talk with us again, we would really love it. And before we close, is there anything you would like to just say?
Thank you for immortalizing this message. And so that's enough for me. And you guys can follow me on Instagram at raw_of_earth. And that's where most of the other words come out of my mouth and out to the public, is on that channel.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. So
Yeah,
what we
thanks,
do
everybody.
now is we take all this wonderful energy that has been created in a group, and we're going to we send it out into the earth, or into the world, into the cosmos. So if everyone can join me in just kind of taking a deep breath through the heart. We will dedicate the merit of this meeting to all those awakening at this precious time. May our efforts to better ourselves help shift the planetary consciousness from fear into love. May this energy ripple out into the world, awaken those with closed hearts, illuminate closed minds, and inspire all to live within the presence of compassion and generosity. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Ra. We're very grateful. I hope everyone has an absolutely wonderful evening, and we'll see you again.